Hello and welcome to Views on News. I am Jawad Tehami. Pakistan's Foreign Secretary Mr. Saeed has made some startling revelations against India's involvement in assassinations in Pakistan. Speaking at a news conference in Islamabad today, he said Islamabad has credible evidence of the links between Indian agents and the assassination of two Pakistani nationals in Sialkot and Rawalakot. He added that India is running a sophisticated and sinister campaign of extraterritorial killings inside Pakistan, and these killings for hire cases involved a sophisticated international setup spread over multiple jurisdictions. The Foreign Secretary has further said Indian agents used technology and safe havens on foreign soil to commit assassinations in Pakistan. They recruited, financed and supported criminals, terrorists and unsuspecting civilians to play defined roles in these assassinations. Also, he said these cases which are relating to these assassinations are being tried in the court of law. Now, this is not the first instance of India's assassination on foreign soils. Earlier, we saw recently Canada was one of those victims where Indian agents associated with the Indian government carried out an assassination of a Canadian national on the Canadian soil. Also after that, the US authorities thwarted an assassination attempt on the part of Indian agents associated with the Indian government of trying to carry out an assassination of another US national on the US soil. Now, regarding this particular phenomenon of India's state sponsorship of terrorism, Pakistan had been repeatedly trying to draw the world community's attention towards it, and on a number of occasions Pakistani officials had been sharing the information of India's involvement of state sponsorship of terrorism, and also dossiers regarding this particular involvement of India in the espionage, sabotage and terrorist activities in Pakistan were shared with the United Nations Secretary General. This important development, these startling revelations about the rogue nature of India as a state, especially under the Bharatiya Janata Party led by its Prime Minister Narendra Modi, will be taking up this up for discussion in today's show. And for that, we are honored to be joined in the studio by Mr. Naveed Aman Khan. He's expert in international relations. Mr. Khan, thank you very much for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. Also on Skype at the same time, we are honored to have been joined by Dr. Asma Shakir Khawaja, Executive Director at the Center for International Strategic Studies, AJK. Dr. Khawaja, thank you very much for your time, also for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. Let me begin the discussion with you, Mr. Khan. Now, the Foreign Secretary had to come himself to do a news conference regarding India's involvement in the assassinations that its agents have carried out on Pakistani soil. When a foreign secretary of a sovereign state comes to reveal such type of facts about another state who happens to be the largest democracy in the world, how concerning, serious these revelations are regarding the character of that particular nation that is continuously carrying out these assassination attempts, not only in one country, but in a number of countries with impunity.
Jawad, since the creation of Pakistan, India has never accepted Pakistan from the core of its heart, and has ever been creating problem for Pakistan. Not only creation of the problems, but also have been designing all sort of terrorism in Pakistan. And the Pakistan, which has been carried out for the last 25 years, is being sponsored and patronized or designed by India, either with the nexus of Afghan Taliban or Mossad. The main culprit and the main designer or the terrorist or perpetrator was India. And since the creation of Pakistan, we have been facing such sort of issues in Pakistan. Not only this is an issue for Pakistan, but also it has become an Indian-sponsored terrorism in the entire world. As you have earlier mentioned, that Mr. Najjar was assassinated in Canada and was assassinated by India. And the evidences are very clear in Canada as well. And Canada has summoned Indian, envoy or the concern regarding that assassination. The case of another assassination plan or plot was revealed in America. One case in Czech Republic, the Czech Republic government has handed over one Indian to the Americans. I give you another example in Middle East. That is a case of Qatar. In Qatar, 8 spies of India have been sentenced to death because of the involvement in some spy activities in Middle East. So India has expanded its all, the sphere of terrorism or spy activities in the entire world.
No, is it so easy for India to, spread its network all across the world in multiple jurisdictions? As Mr. Foreign Secretary has also said, it is running a sophisticated and sinister campaign of extraterritorial killings inside Pakistan. And it is the sophisticated international setup that is spread over multiple jurisdictions. How easy it is for India to, build up that setup in multiple jurisdictions?
First of all, India targeted Pakistan. When India was confident enough that India can target Pakistan for a longer time, and in the entire of the country has been on the target of India since long, then India got that encouragement and decided to expand its design in the entire world. But remember, the time is gone. Now it is enough. The government of Pakistan, the armed forces of Pakistan, the army chief, they all are very committed, and they are, very determined that they will teach a severe lesson to every terrorist sponsored activity in the country, or every perpetrator of the terrorism activity in the country. And it is very clear that in all the activities, terrorism activities, India is behind. And Pakistan will take this case in the United Nations and on international forums.
I'll come back to you to take your view regarding as to what options Pakistan carries with itself when it comes to exposing the real face of India under Modi and Bharatiya Janata Party that is driven by the RSS ideology, the Hindutva ideology. Dr. Khawaja, now when we specifically talk about it, we've seen on a number of occasions Pakistani officials been sharing the information with irrefutable evidence of India's involvement in state sponsorship of terrorism directed specifically towards Pakistan. Now, these assassinations and an attempt in the US and an earlier assassination over there in Canada, what do you think could be the motive behind all these assassinations India is carrying out with impunity?
A very important question, and I would like to start my answer while quoting Indian philosopher Mr. Chanakya Kautilya, who said that overconfidence is a sign of weakness. So for me, under Modi regime, India has in last 8 years developed this strange false sense of superiority, and this belief that they are beyond or superior to all laws, regulations, and international rules as well. So this act of killing or extrajudicial killing, extraterritorial killing, transnational terrorism carried out by none other than Indian government agency called RAW on the behest of the current political regime in power in India. So this is only a manifestation or to act like a power or have false sense of power in a Modi mindset. Otherwise, if we see that there are uh, only rogue states. If we see the world contemporary history, only rogue states were involved in killing their opponents in foreign lands in other countries. Otherwise, and no responsible state actor, that too a nuclear one, they did not carry such transnational terrorism as a state policy in the world. So it is
Right, Dr.
only India
Khawaja,
under BJP
you
regime.
raised a very important point over here when it comes to the responsibility of a certain state, when it comes to its position and standing in the Committee of Nations, what do we understand? What are the presumptions when it comes to a state's responsibility? Especially when we talk about it being the member of the United Nations, as well as it claims itself to be the largest democracy in the world.
Yes. Number one, like India is no more under Modi regime. India is no more and the largest democracy, but it is been called as per international organizations working on the subject, India is been called as electoral autocracy, and that extrajudicial, extraterritorial, transnational terrorism carried out by Indian government is a manifestation of being an electoral autocracy. And if we see that, as you asked, this what is a responsible state actor? Responsible state actor is a state which respects the sovereignty of other states, which respect the which wanted to be respected in international politics and scenarios. So if you see any response, and then possession of nuclear power gives or attributes more responsibility to a state. And if a state is such so irresponsible that they doesn't even care about the sovereignty of other states and carried out such mass, I would call it mass murderer, so those killings, and only those against those people who the state only think that they are not towing the government line, they are not following the government's policy. So that is very, very alarming, and the all other international actors, they have to sit and think that if a state is that much irresponsible towards its duties as a responsible state actor, then what would be the case if, as we know, India is trying to emerge as the only leader of global south? So does any can you quote any other example from any other responsible state actor to carry out such extrajudicial killings on the soils on the in the territory of other countries? So Modi regime wants to manifest or give a clear, blatant, explicit message to its opponents that if they would oppose BJP regime, the as we all know that they do lots of trolling to all those who don't support or toe the BJP lines across the globe. It is not only for Indians, but anyone, any person of any nationality, if he's not towing the line of BJP, they would troll him on social media, and they would cross all limits of responsible citizens, world citizens. So, number one, Modi is trying to give a message to all the opponents that they will kill them, and they will not let them live a free life if they dare to disagree with the policies of Indian states. So that is really alarming, and that is why if we see the current political landscape within India, we can see the constituencies and space for the sane voices, those voices which oppose BJP's policies, have been really reduced. The biggest political opponent of BJP in India is, as we all know, is Congress. And see what they have done with Congress, what they have done with Rahul Gandhi, and they didn't even allow him or invited him, I would say, to any national activity which all other leaders are invited. They trialed him in the court for a sin which every BJP leader has committed till to date. So they BJP itself is giving tickets to the people involved in genocide, involved in killings, or in drug trade. So this shows the what is the level of respect for international national values and ethical norms BJP have. If they are giving political tickets to the mass murderers, it means they don't believe that killing or taking life of an opponent is something to be ashamed upon. But here the duty of international community starts. International community should open their eyes and analyze this situation beyond the clutches of their economic or financial benefits and interests. Because
Right,
if,
Dr. Khawaja, your
as
point,
we all
I'll come
know,
back
that
to you on this particular point, the last point that you've just mentioned, that what happens to be You've very comprehensively explained what happens to the responsibility of a state with its position in the Committee of Nations. Now, as per the international norms now, what happens to the responsibility of international community, especially at a time that there have been certain cases that come to the light from Canada as well as the United States of America. Mr. Khan, now, when we talk about the motives of Bharatiya Janata Party government led by its Prime Minister Narendra Modi, what, as per your understanding, could be the motives of such assassinations it is carrying out across the globe? What larger interest does it want to achieve through it?
In fact, if you just have a view on the tenure of Modi as CM Gujarat, he has been butchering thousands of the innocent people in Gujarat, from where he excelled to the center. The formula which he just provoked or introduced to the Indians was the myth of Hindutva. He believes that Hindustan or India is for India, for the Hindus only, and the Hindus have the right to survive in India.
Supposedly, if he is selling this particular narrative based on Hindutva ideology to gain that political mileage within India, but how do you think he could think of this particular formula or the narrative being successful overseas?
It's okay, no problem. He is selling this narrative overseas because he wants to please Indian Hindus that he is the best leader or politician for Indian Hindus who can take care of the interests of the Hindus in the entire world. So he believes that I am or my government is targeting those people in the entire world for the sake of the interest, safeguarding interests of the Hindus of India. It is a very, very dangerous mythology and approach, which will really culminate in a very dangerous mode to India. India will suffer because of this approach and this mentality which Modi is carrying in the entire world. India or Indian leaders or then Modi started it from Pakistan. Then the international community like America or Canada or Britain, they didn't take care of it. They didn't take notice of it. Then from this encouragement, India then entered in Canada. India entered in Qatar. India entered in America, and then in the entire region. India will have to be, contained, not only by Pakistan, but also by America, Canada, Britain, or United Nations, because India is creating problem for the entire region, and if the entire region decide to limit India to its territory, it will be.
So you have mentioned a very important point over here. Well, that narrative, if that sells well domestically within India of Bharatiya Janata Party and Narendra Modi, the point that you've just raised is even alarming, that when he wants to give a message to the Hindus or the Indians across the globe, wherever they are stationed, whether it is the Western nations, whether wherever they are, that he is going to be the custodian or the savior or the protector of that very narrative, and he is going to resort to such type of heinous acts whenever and wherever he deems fit.
Yes, it is his mythology.
So does this particular thing fare well with the Western nations in particular?
Never.
What sort of response or a reaction should be expected from them, especially when we have seen an evidence of an assassination already carried out in Canada? There was an assassination attempt that was made, which was thwarted in the US. What could be the response from them?
The case of Canada, America, Pakistan, and Qatar is the same case. There is nothing different from the design or the ultimate result of those cases. Every case is similar to the other. The case of Kulbhushan Yadav is a classical example of this state-sponsored terrorism in Pakistan, and that case should be studied in America and in Canada as well. and it is designed by India. And this, approach will create really problem for the West as well. If the West or America or Canada didn't take notice of their cases, I mean, this is India who will create problem for those states, because they are encouraged and they believe that if we can create problem for Pakistan, we can create problem for any country. But believe you, Pakistan or the government of Pakistan or the state of Pakistan or the armed forces of Pakistan are very vigilant, and they will take notice of it, and they will never spare India because of all these involvements or such sort of incidents.
We know that, of course, the Canadians and the US authorities have taken note of this. They've got that evidence of India's involvement in such activities on their soil. But taking just merely the notice and going for investigation and not doing any sort of a practical, taking practical measure in order to hold India accountable for its high-handedness on the foreign soils. What could be the options for those countries? In particular, I'll come back to you. For now, we are honored to have been joined by another participant on the phone line, Brigadier retired Ahmad Saeed Minhas, senior analyst. Brigadier Minhas, thank you very much for your time, for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. What, according to you, as per your understanding, could be the motives when we talk about India's interests, or what sort of objectives does it want to achieve through such assassinations in multiple jurisdictions?
Yeah, thank you very much for taking me on your show. Actually, today's press conference by the Foreign Secretary is of extreme importance, as it highlighted the Indians, that phase which was earlier hidden from the world, and especially when they came out of their shell, and back in 2023, initially they were exposed in Canada when they killed a Khalistan leader. And subsequently, they tried to do the same in New York also, but due to the CIA's sting operation, it could not materialize. Now, again in 2023, in the same row, they were also involved here in Pakistan, and they had two target killing here in the Kashmir against two innocent Pakistanis who were thought to be like supporting the Pakistani cause inside the Indian held Kashmir. So as far as your question is concerned, that what could be the motives behind as why Indians are doing that? Basically, the Indians, they want to extend their influence across their borders, and not only borders into the region, but across the seas now. And they went even to the Americas, which includes the Canada and the American mainland, and as well as the Europe as well. So they wanted to show themselves to be a greater power, if not the superpower, and the world should look towards them because they have that kind of influence. I think that effort of the Indians were badly exposed, and the worst phase of the Indians, especially its RAW, the intelligence agencies of the RAW, was exposed badly in the world, which can be taken as the true textbook example or the definition of this state-sponsored terrorism. And very badly the Indians are exposed now. Besides that, I would say that since Indians, they were like being energized by the world, and especially the US against the Chinese, and the kind of a strength they gained was basically to project themselves as the regional policemen also. So these kind of activities are not acceptable at the world, especially when the same West have been supporting the Indians, so it was not taken positively. So I think today's press conference of the Foreign Secretary would have further exposed the Indians' actual phase, which is known for being the state-sponsored terrorism. So I think this is the motive behind it.
Right, Brigadier Minhas. Now, when we talk about the United States of America as well as Canada, the assassination attempt in New York that was thwarted by the US authorities. There was an assassination that was carried out of a Canadian national on the Canadian soil. We had already seen there were a number of times the Pakistani officials had been trying to draw the world community's attention towards India's high-handedness and India's state sponsorship of terrorism. The recent examples of that assassination which was carried out on Canadian soil, and also that assassination attempt on in the US, shouldn't those particular cases had served as an eye-opener for those two leading Western nations in order to hold India accountable for its high-handedness and sponsorship of transnational terrorism?
Yes, it did. It did because the example of it is that Joe Biden had a plan to visit India on the Republic Day, but he declined to come, which of course did not was not liked by the Indians themselves. And as a reaction to it, we saw that the Mr. Jay Shankar, who happens to be the Foreign Minister of the India, he went to Russia, and from there, in the joint press conference, he challenged the sole superpower status of the United States. And in the joint press conference which Jay Shankar held with his counterpart, Russian counterpart, he said that Indians should not be taken light because they have an economy of 4 trillion, and at the same time, it is the third largest economy of the world. Basically, they wanted to reiterate, they wanted to make the West again show that the products of their industry, which used to be consumed in the Indian market, they are still the buyers of the same. So if you decline the Indian importance in the region or at the global level, or you try to expose the Indians at the different forums, especially at the United Nations, so they can lose the Indian market. So basically, it is it is against the Americans' plans, which they wanted to make the Indian rise against the expanding or rising China, and now they are facing the repercussions of that. Pakistan have been taking this stance since long, and especially after the Kulbhushan, who was arrested while he crossed from the Iranian side. Pakistan have been taking up this issue at the bilateral level with the different European countries as well as the multilateral. But since the U.S. was like in a state of dismissiveness vis-a-vis India, because India was seen as a regional policeman against the rising China. So now when the fire has reached into their backyard, now they have started realizing as to what kind of mistake they have made. So I think in times to come, the West in general, and the U.S. and the Canada in particular, who have been supporting and have been getting into various kind of arrangements like Quad and other security arrangements, will have to rethink about their policies vis-a-vis India, because the Indians are not now only threat for the South Asian security, but they are also posing the security challenges to rest of the world also. So these kind of dual kind of nature is like has truly exposed the Indians. And as I always say, that the Indians strategic thinker has been telling them that your immediate neighbor is your enemy, and while your neighbor's neighbor is your friend. So similarly, India has been investing into Iran and Afghanistan to attack or to launch terrorist activities inside Pakistan. So all these kind of teachings of the Chanakya, which the Indian strategic thinkers or the planners they do, has badly exposed the RSS face or tainted the BJP government. And especially we need to be on guard now, because in the April Lok Sabha elections are going to be held in India, and we all know that Indians have been using anti-Muslim slogans besides the other minorities in the India to win the elections. So BJP's Hindutva ideology, which is of course the ultra-nationalist and extremist approach they carry, so can be detrimental not only to the region but the world in general also.
Right, Brigadier Minhas, when we talk about the people at the helm of affairs in the United States of America as well as in Canada, we perhaps presumably can understand that they've got some economic interests associated with India, and if no concrete action to hold India accountable for its high-handedness and its assassination attempts on their soil is done by those authorities, how do you think it's going to have a fallout on the public opinion over there within the United States of America and within Canada?
Actually, Indians have started feeling the heat of it right now in the diaspora of the Indians in the West, and especially in America and Canada. They have been complaining against their high-headedness of their government back home, which is led by the BJP leadership under the Modi. So already they have started feeling the heat. But I would say that since the Indian market, they provide like over 100 billions of investment to the Western industries. So it would take some time, because to divert like over $100 billion economy inside the market or inside the market of the Indians, it would just definitely take some little time. But especially nowadays, the feelings are there, and the West and the U.S. people have started thinking about it, and they're looking for the alternative market. But since the population of the Indians are like over 1.4 billion, so naturally the consumption of the Western products are more in India. But I would say that the international relation experts, we claim that the current world is existing in the real politic environment in which the might is right is dominating at this particular moment, and in that might is right, the economy or the economics, it is playing a major role as we study the international political economy also as a subject. So the economy or the economics or the finances, they are basically driving the political affairs also. So we need to, or the West need to divert their
For the interjection
investment to
over
other
here, one
countries, not
last
only to
point
the
I
India.
want, Brigadier Minhas, I seek your pardon for the interjection over here. I've taken your point very well. Now, one last point I want you to shed a little bit of light on. After these starting revelations, and Pakistan has been victim of back and forth, this particular high-handedness on the part of Indian agents. Now, what options from here onwards Pakistani authorities do have on what sort of international fora Pakistan should be taking this particular case?
Today's press conference of the Foreign Secretary, it definitely shows that it must have taken up the issues with the friendly capitals across the world, from where the like-minded countries would be gathered together, and a joint kind of resolution may be tabled inside the United Nations Committee of the anti-terrorism, and from there the pressure could be built. At the bilateral level, of course, the Indians and Pakistanis are not talking anymore after the composite dialogue, which was initiated back in 1999 since 2012. So we cannot expect any bilateral advancement. But yes, we can talk to the Americans. We can talk to the European Union Parliament also. From there, the pressure could also be developed. So it's all the political gimmick which we need to carry on, because already the things are right, and the West and the European countries and the United States, Canada, and now in the UK also, the world are looking at the Indians from a different prism. So now we need to capitalize on this, because till the time we will not reinforce what we have been telling the world, that Indians are against the peace in South Asia. Now we need to develop on that. We need to build on that. So the things are ripe, and I think the diplomatic core of Pakistan are quite trained, are quite hardworking, and they would take up this narrative very well to expose the Indians, not to malign India as a country, but to keep the South Asia free of these kind of terrorism activities.
Right, your point is well taken. Brigadier Retired Ahmad Saeed, Minhas, senior analyst, joining us on phone line. Thank you very much for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. Dr. Khawaja, now, is there any sort of a mechanism in place that could be brought into action or could be implemented when it comes to the United Nations Security Council, when a certain member of the United Nations is acting rogue and is blatantly violating the principle of non-intervention into a sovereign state with such an impunity? Please go ahead.
Whatever Indian government did to become a transnational terrorist organization or actor, that is not allowed as per UN resolutions, UN rules and regulation, International Human Rights Charter, or any clause of international law, that those acts, extrajudicial territorial killings, cannot be supported. Here I would also like to highlight that if we see, when I was reading that how Indian government and raw trapped people into this racket of these extrajudicial killing gang, it was written that they hired people through an mobile app. They created a mobile app, used it to lure people into their criminal racket. And that was so alarming, because that is the exactly same strategy used by Daesh or ISIS to lure people from across the globe into violence. So this was really alarming, and if international community didn't accept or didn't support the policies of Daesh or ISIS, then how can they even think of supporting similar activities carried out by raw Indian intelligence agency on the behest of Indian government? Another thing that India always claim that Pakistan is a revisionist state, but those recent acts, like if we study India in detail, since day one, India is a revisionist state. India revised the regional order of balance of power by using or by testing nuclear bombs. India initiated nuclear arms race, space arms race, missiles arms race. Everything India did to revise the regional or extra-regional order in India's favor. But these acts of extrajudicial killing again endorsed India's ambition to revise the international order in international balance of power and to revise it into India's favor. And that is why India is manifesting this brutal power by killing people who dare to disagree with India. And international community cannot ignore it, especially till where if even if their common economic interests with India refrain them from taking any action against the perpetrator. I would say that this time is close. That when India would question their the sovereignty of all those states which are quite right now. Say, and moreover, Pakistan. There are several Indians involved in criminal terrorist activities against Pakistan. And right now, I can remind you the name of Colonel Prohit, who did bomb blast in some Jota train incident in 2007, and this took the lives of more than 70 Pakistani nationals. So, what India would suggest, or what precedent India is trying to set, that should Pakistan also do all those extrajudicial and extraterritorial killing to fix its score with all those terrorists responsible for the deaths of Pakistanis?
So,
Because
so, so
Indian
what? So
judiciary.
after these revelations, Dr. Khawaja, what are the options with Pakistani authorities?
See, peace is the only option. We only need to reach out the conscious of the world, the countries of the world which matter, the capitals where the international policies have been formulated with dossiers, with logical dossiers, and we should keep on telling the world what India is doing. We can be the whistleblower. Pakistan, at this point of time when Pakistan is directly under threat due
Dr.
to the
Khawaja, now Pakistan continues to draw the world's attention towards this particular high-handedness of India. Earlier, we have also seen Pakistani authorities sharing those dossiers with irrefutable evidence of India's state sponsorship of terrorism to the world community at the United Nations as well. Now, for how long Pakistani authorities would try to shake the global community's conscience, especially given the fact when there were cases that were taken from the US of an assassination attempt, and then an assassination attempt that was carried on Canadian soil. I mean, shouldn't those cases had served as an eye-opener and had actually vindicated Pakistan's stance?
I would suggest that please include Qatar in this as well, because recently 8 Indian naval officers have been sentenced in Qatar for on the charges of espionage, and that is not less than although that can be a chain of those activities as well. So what we can do, Pakistan can only be proactive, telling the world, be the whistleblower, because we cannot be a rogue state. We cannot follow the footsteps of a radical fascist Nazi inspired government in place in India. We cannot be them. So that is why Pakistan needs to choose its own course of action, Pakistan's own way and way or to approach things as per our own value system and ethical
Your point
and
is well
high
taken.
moral
Your point
grounds.
is
So
well taken. Unfortunately, we're short of time. I'll come back to you. I'll come back to you, Dr. Khawaja, for your understanding on a very important point that you had mentioned earlier in your take. Mr. Aman, Mr. Khan, please go ahead. What sort of options from here onwards Pakistan does carry with with itself. For how long Pakistan would continue to try to shake the global community's conscience, especially given the fact that there were cases that came from the US as well as from Canada as well as Qatar. Now, what options do you think could be more?
One thing Pakistan will have to continue, and that is exposing India on international level. With the international powers or in the international forums like UN, Pakistan will have to expose India on every level, diplomatically, politically. And number two, Pakistan will have to focus on its economy. Pakistan will have to strengthen economy, and Pakistan will have to address all those issues which Pakistani community, Pakistani people or Pakistani masses are facing. And Pakistan will have to keep all those target people who can become prey to India. So Pakistan will have to dismantle Indian Pakistan Taliban or in Afghan Taliban nexus as well. These are the measures which Pakistan will have to take immediately, and I think it will be giving some immediate fruits to Pakistan as well.
Right. How is technology affecting the global scenario when it comes to bilateral relationship, and how technology is being used by such states which are acting like rogue states under a certain specific extremist ideology, and the authorities over there carry on with the sinister design they do have. So what this combination actually tells us, the extremist ideology added into sinister design, and then that is laced by the modern technology.
Jawad, technology matters, and the technology which India is using for terrorism, Pakistan will have to counter that technology as well. Pakistan will have to opt or have that technology to have counter terrorism, which is being carried out by India with the help of that sophisticated technology. Secondly, one thing it is very important as far as the Indian mindset is concerned. Modi is going for his third term. He believes that he will be the Prime Minister of India for the third time. For this achievement, he wants to go for any sort of such aggression against Pakistan in particular, and aggressions in the entire world in general, to give impression to the 80% population of India, which is comprised on the Hindus, and he wants to please those Hindus and give a message to those Hindus that he is the ultimate choice of those Hindus to protect the interests of the Hindutva mythology in India and in the entire world.
Right, Dr. Khawaja, now the addition of technology. We know there is an extremist ideology that is at play, and the authorities over there in India have got the sinister design as well. Now these two elements, and now the addition of the third one, the technology. Now how this particular thing can be addressed when it comes to curb this transnational terrorism from such a rogue state?
The antidote to technology is the technology itself. So Pakistan can improve our artificial intelligence and technical cybersecurity issues, so that Indian fascists, they should not reach out to our people, and we need to break, of course, their cycle of terrorism, terror financing. We need to be more vigilant on our borders and don't allow any suspected with the use of AI and technology, definitely. And then I would like to add that we all know that Bharat before that was carrying out their terrorist activities, sponsoring anti-Pakistan proxies to spread terrorism in Pakistan through Afghanistan. Who doesn't know this? So we are victim of all these fascist design of a empowered, radical, fascist, fanatic government in India. So when we say the radicals but the problem is the radicals are all over the world. There are different communities which are radicalized. But in India, the problem is that they are in power. They have their hands, their fingers on nuclear push button. So a country which rationality cannot prohibit him, that country,
Now they are
from
using
carrying
the
out
modern
operations
technology to
across
carry out that transnational terrorism should be alarming and a huge concern for the global community, and it is the responsibility of the international organizations, especially when it comes to the United Nations, as well as the leading Western nations, in order to impress upon India to not resort to such type of heinous acts of transnational terrorism and assassinations on foreign soils. Dr. Asma Shakir Khawaja, Executive Director at the Center for International Strategic Studies, AJK, thank you very much for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. Mr. Naveed Aman Khan, expert in international relations, you were joining us in the studio. Thank you very much for taking time out for Views on News tonight. Really appreciate that. With that, we come to the end of today's show. Till the next one, take good care of yourselves.